Bongiovanni, and he's been, applause for Joe. Joe has been to our conferences regularly since a long time ago, I think 2008, 2009, when we were still at the Roosevelt University. And Stephen Zalenga and I came across Joe on a video, and Joe was giving a presentation about the NEED Act, and we thought, wow, this is, and he was saying, these guys are onto it, the American Monetary System. So we got in touch with Joe and said, well, you've got to come to our conference, and then we got to know Joe, and Stephen used to introduce him as, among the top 3 people in the US, possibly, on expert on monetary reform. And now, Stephen has passed away and Robert Petita's passed away, so I think this year you've been promoted. So Joe's going to be talking on a very interesting topic that he talked about at the International Movement for Monetary Reform conference in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and it really struck a chord and was very useful for the people there, particularly in the Netherlands, the on-scale people. They really liked what he presented, and they're using it in their work with the scientific, the government scientific body that's investigating the monetary system in the Netherlands. So Joe is going to be talking about that with you, and then going to be announcing something which could be really dramatic. So without further ado, please give a loud ringing applause for Joe Bongiovanni.
Wow. Where do I go from here? Where I'm going to go is to thank Jamie, not just for that introduction, but for the opportunity to be here to present. I've always enjoyed the coming to the AMI conferences, and it's kind of like the highlight of, one of the highlights of my year after the Kettle Pond Institute gatherings, which are a little bit more of a highlight. But I'm really here because I like to have a chance to talk to the people that are here about something that's on their minds, and get feedback and provide information. That's my purpose for being here. So for those who don't know me, I'm the director of the Kettle Pond Institute for Debt-Free Money in Vermont. I'm not sure, but hopefully to become the first organizational member of the Alliance for Just Money, of which I'm also a director. But my opinions are my own. Okay, anything that I have to say here is just my opinion. Have nothing to do with either KPI or with the Alliance. And then the last thing I want to say before I begin is to thank the guy who taught me everything that I know about monetary reform, which was my dad, and the fact that thank you, and the fact that he himself did the hard work, did the research, to come to a conclusion that the monetary system was the problem for advancing, for advancing the economy, for advancing all the things that were important. And he came at it from a, kind of a strange perspective as a businessman, a Republican, a conservative. I shouldn't say Catholic in there, but as a leader in the church community that he was. In other words, he was a really conservative guy. And somehow or other, when he was trying to study the problems of the national economy, he came to the conclusion that the monetary system really needs to be changed if we're going to ever make any progress. And eventually he convinced me of that, mostly by making me read Frederick Soddy's book titled The Role of Money. And sometimes people question about you know, where I would be if he hadn't been doing that, and I'd be sailing. You know, that's where I'd be. I don't know about the rest of you, but here we are, and I'm not sailing. So the story today, the story that I'm going to tell today, is primarily one of ignorance. Okay, I'm going to talk about ignorance. And when I talk about ignorance, I'm going to talk about it in a way that I see it as the major stumbling block for making progress with the monetary reform movement at this date in time, and given the changes that are taking place. So this is the story of overcoming institutional, systemic, structured, and very intentional ignorance. And we've heard the people from the European movement talk about how, well, this is the way I took it. That was their problem. That was the problem. It was overcoming ignorance, and it's something that if we talk about monetary reform, if we talk about the money system, that we do it every day. And one of the things that my dad told me, which was just another one of the things that I was sure he was wrong about, he said in his day, 90% of the bankers, and 95% of the economists, and 99% of the people in the Congress have no idea where money comes from. Okay? So that's the kind of ignorance that I'm talking about. That's the kind of ignorance that we face, because we have to get to the other side of that ignorance, which is understanding. And so the question to us becomes, how do we move to change ignorance into understanding? And in my opinion, is what I'm talking about, is a National Monetary Commission is the knowledge bridge to achieving our national economy's potential. Okay? Now, that can only be done, that is to say that the money system is the thing that really has to change in order to achieve that potential, but we need to be able to impart understanding about the things that we're talking about with the monetary system, and quite frankly, our grassroots efforts, as noble as they are, and as wonderful as they are, in my opinion, not capable of doing so. Just not capable of getting the story out there. To go from, you know, my dad said 1%, or 99% Congress don't understand it. So that would leave 1% of 535 people in the Congress. That would be 5 people in the Congress. So he was, I didn't know it at the time, I was sure he was wrong again, but he was being very generous. Because if there's one person in the Congress today who really understands where money comes from and how it's made, I don't know who it is. You know, and I don't know how to get to that one person to become a leader for us. But I do know that there are ways to get Congress people, I don't know, do I want to say force feeding? Do I want to say force feeding the information, because of the fact that a National Monetary Commission, if it was underway, would not be able to be ignored. And not only that, it would absolutely involve all those sectors that Martin was speaking of earlier, that is to say the press, that is to say academia, that is to say everybody. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from here to be here, and again to thank Jamie for the opportunity to be here and to actually invite me to speak on this topic, because I wanted to come to the conference, but I was see, I'm not really sure. Okay, so there's our bridge. Okay, there's our bridge. So we know that we need that bridge. Do we know that we need that bridge? You know, John Kenneth Galbraith was one of the most famous economists that my dad dealt with, you know, at the time a lot. And, you know, he has a kind of a famous saying that went something like, the study of money, above all else in economics, is the one that is designed, you know, to evade, you know, rather than to convey the truth of what's happening. So in other words, well, money, you know, money among the economists. I think Martin said that, you know, he said, well, we went to the economists, and they were hiding behind the fact that they want to publish papers. And in order to publish their papers or move to advance, they gotta toe a certain line, and money is on the other side of the line. And so they don't do it, they don't touch it, they don't study it, they don't know about it. So, to me, this is the, you know, kind of the conundrum, if you will, of economics, is that in theory, it is going to inform us about what's going on in the world that affects us, especially when you get to the macroeconomic, you know, the international level of how things are developed and traded and stuff, and yet they don't study the money system. And the money system is the thing that's making all of that stuff happen. Two of the major speakers, you know, that we've had here, Dr. Kumhoff and Dr. Yamaguchi, and others who I've met, and Dr. Huber as well. Okay, they say that you know, they got moved by coming to a fundamental understanding, which is that the monetary system is the foundation for all financial activity and for all economic activity. And once you realize that, you stop laying up in the economy and dealing with fiscal matters and trying to deal with you know, private commerce, if you will, the private sector and the financial sector, and you get down to dealing with money. So that's how they become aware of it. That's how we have to, you know, we have to deal with it. So Henry Ford said, you know, famously, he said, "It is well and good that the American people, in particular, do not understand how the are ignorant," I think he said, are ignorant of how the monetary system actually works. For if they did, there would be a revolution before the morning. And I have spent a lot of my life trying to get to that revolution before the morning, to try to get there. Now another person who has opined on this. I hope this. Well, that's not working.
Now, Paul Christian told me personally
Okay,
that I was totally crazy about money.
wait a minute.
He said, "Have you not?" We were both from MIT. Okay, we were graduated from the same.
I guess. Well, I did this earlier. Played that video.
They tell you
So let me stop.
never touch the money system.
So I have to back it up.
Press escape.
Get out of.
Escape.
Yeah.
Press escape.
We are, and it's not doing anything.
What did you want to say?
Yeah, I want to play it. Yeah. Sorry.
Never touch the money system. Every